What's going on, everybody, and welcome to a bonus episode of the Book Binge where I got tagged for the first time in a serious book tag video. Thank you to Nicole at Nicole's Bookish Nook for doing that. Today I'm actually, ironically, just got shipped these Edgar Allan Poe shirts that I bought recently that you can't see very well because I'm so white that the contrast on the black between my white skin does not particularly make him stand out, but that's fine. Nicole was the one who also recommended me these shirts, so I got them. Today is the DNF book tag. This will be the very first one of these things that I've ever done before, and I suppose I ought to actually like get out the notes so that I know how to answer the questions. So, yeah, like I'm just gonna kind of be winging this. Hopefully, it's a little bit of a shorter video because I wasn't planning on doing this, and obviously, and because there's only a few questions. Hopefully I don't ramble on too much because I am prone to talking way too much, as, the links of pretty much all of my past videos will attest. But with that being said, let's just go ahead and kind of get started with the very first question. How often do you DNF and what makes you DNF? The question is basically never. If I can help it, I won't DNF a book. There is only one example of a book. Well, let's start from a little bit earlier. I was, a big reader when I was a little bit younger, but there was several years where I basically didn't do any reading. So when I'm talking about DNFing, I'm talking about my journey from when I started reading in the middle of 2021 again through the present. So this is basically the time period that I'm referring to. The only book that I've DNF'd in this time period, and even then I think I still tell myself it's only a soft DNF, is the book that was in the thumbnail, is Tides 4 by Stephen Pressfield. In fact, I still have the bookmark in there because I have not fully convinced myself that I won't return at some point. Although, to be fair, it's unlikely. I try not to DNF things because even books that are unenjoyable or that I don't love, there's still usually something to get out of it, even if it's just trolling friends, as is the case of the Bird book. And even with the Bird book, the first part was very good. But generally speaking, I tend not to DNF, and I don't like to DNF. Considering DNF is enough of a pain in the butt for me, but a lot of that comes with being a little bit younger as well and just wanting to experience stuff and wanting to get something out of everything. And so a lot of it comes with me being a little bit pickier in choosing what I read based off of what I think I might enjoy, and things that maybe I won't enjoy so much, going in with the expectation of that and understanding that so that I'm less likely to DNF in the process. I went into this book with really high hopes and only got through part of it because it just was not working for me, and I felt myself going into another slump while reading it after just coming out of practically a month-long slump right before that. So, as a result, that's why I decided to put it on pause, so to speak, but I've just never returned, and who knows if I will. Question number 2 is, do you rate books 1 star? Up to this point, I have not. I would probably say that 1 star is what I would give like actual DNFs if I was willing to like actually DNF stuff. So like if I went back and were to rate this, because what I did on my Goodreads with this was I just didn't give it a star rating and just wrote a review that was just like, this is a, putting this on pause. So if I go back and re-rate some stuff on Goodreads, because I've been planning to do that for a while and haven't yet, I'd probably go ahead and say that 1 stars is what I would DNF or just absolutely abysmally hate with 0 redeeming qualities. That's probably what I would rate books as 1 stars, because I have not up to this point done so. Although when I go back, this will probably be the one that falls in that category. Question number 3 is, what is a 2-star book to you? So a 2-star book to me is, if you were to go onto my Goodreads right now, at least at the time that I'm recording this, and probably at the time that this video releases, you'll see that I don't actually have any 2-star ratings on my Goodreads at the moment, but I have been planning for a little while to go back and re-rate some stuff and actually write reviews for a lot of the earlier books that I read, because I didn't join Goodreads until like April 2022, which was, a little over 6 months before, a little over 6 months after I started this reading journey. So a lot of those books that I read in the time before that, I didn't actually rate or review on Goodreads at the time. I just gave them a star rating at that point. And also at that point, my rating system was a little bit different, which we'll go into a little bit later with a different question on this tag as well. So as a result, sorry, I don't have anything on there that are currently rated 2 stars, but there are a couple things that I will be taking down to 2 stars when I go through and do that. A 2-star book to me is not a book that I hate, but a book that I generally dislike more than I like, and one that I would generally not recommend to people. And that's really kind of where I'm going to leave that question off for now, because I can clarify a little bit more in follow-up questions. Question number 4 is a 3-star book a good book for you? I would say a 3-star book is a decent book to me. I know there's like this kind of thing where a lot of people will take 3 stars as being like a really low score, and even to myself, I think giving a book 3 stars is a fairly low score, because up to this point I haven't given anything below 3 stars. And even when I go through and re-rate some stuff, there's going to be only a handful of stuff. You could probably count on one hand how many of those things will go down to being below 3 stars in some degree. So with that being said, 3 stars is a relatively low score for me, but I don't think it's a bad book. 3 stars kind of, like right in the middle of there's stuff that I don't like or stuff that doesn't work versus stuff that I do like and stuff that does work, that just kind of balances in something that I think is fine or decent, but doesn't necessarily click or work like in its totality. And that's kind of where I fall with 3 stars. I don't see 3 stars as an average score, because for me 4 stars is actually more like my average. That's my default score, is closer to 4 than 3. So generally something has to not work in a way that I have to like notably be against it for it to fall down to 3 stars. But it's still a decent book, just not one that I'm going to, in reference to the 2-star rating, a book that I generally wouldn't recommend to somebody. A 3-star book is a book that I would neither recommend nor not recommend. It's one of those books that in a normal review on the Book Binge, I would say I take all of everything that I just said about what I liked and what I didn't like, or what other people may like or not like about this book, and make your own decision about whether you want to read it, because I don't necessarily have a solid recommendation. Whereas 2 stars, one of those books would be like I don't recommend this unless you are the type of person who would enjoy this book. Don't read this book, is kind of what 2-star is. 3 stars, like I said, take all the information I just gave you and decide whether or not you want to read it, because I'm not going to tell you one way or the other. Question number 5 is, what does 4 stars mean to you? And I sort of answered this partially in the last question. 4 stars to me is more or less my default. It's more or less my average. Any book that, I enjoy, that doesn't have anything particularly notable that, brings it down anything, and doesn't have anything particularly notable that I love about it, is going to get a 4 stars. 4 stars is pretty easy for me to hand out. It's actually not the score that I give out to most books, but like, as in, it's not the highest ranking score on my Goodreads profile if you were to look. But it is, I feel like it's my default. It's the one where if I'm going into a book, I'm going into it thinking like, okay, so I'm going to read this, and it's going to end up 4 stars. Over the course of it, that affects my score. If I'm reading in, there's stuff that I'm not liking, I'll tend towards thinking about 3 stars, or if I'm really enjoying it, I'll tend towards thinking about 5 stars, and then that will just kind of move back and forth in like a wave throughout my reading process, and that's kind of how that will go. Question number 6 is, do you ever do half-star ratings? Kind of yes and no. For the most part, I try not to, but there are a handful of books that I do feel like fit solidly between one of those star ratings that I just don't feel really comfortably putting it one way or the other. I'll round that score up or down based off of, how heavy that sort of in-between feeling rests, but for the most part, I try to avoid half stars. Question number 7, do you rate books 5 stars often? What do 5-star books do to make you rate them that high? Yes, I rate 5 stars quite frequently. I'm fairly easy to please when it comes to reading. And part of this is because I go into basically everything I read with low expectations, so to speak, not in the sense that I expect them to be bad, because I don't expect basically anything I read to be bad, but I go in with the mindset of, if this is bad, that's fine. But if it's good, I'll be surprised and enjoy it even more. So with that sort of mindset going into most of the books that I read, I end up enjoying a lot of the stuff that I read a lot more than I don't. Which is why 4 and 5 stars make up probably 2/3 or more, maybe even 3/4 of the ratings that I hand out on Goodreads. And I believe 5 stars is my most frequent handout. It's not hard to reach a 5 stars for me with a book. For me, 5-star book is either a perfect book, at which point, I'll give it like a shining, glowing review talking about how much I absolutely adore it. But a lot of other books that maybe I don't necessarily love that much still reach 5 stars, because if there are any flaws or qualities of the books that don't bring down how much I enjoyed a book, it's still going to get 5 stars. If I really enjoy something, even if there's maybe a problem or two with it, if they aren't big problems and I'm completely willing to overlook them, boom, it gets 5 stars for me. So that's kind of how I rate that as well. Question number 8 is, has your ratings of books changed over the years? Yes, and there are kind of two different places where this changed, so to speak. So early on, I was rating books on a 1 to 10 scale, and my, blank out of 10 rating system was and kind of still is based off of basically the American school grading system. And I don't know how similar the school grading system is in America to other schools, which is why I specify America. An A is 90 to 100%, basically. A B is 80 to 89. C is 70 to 79, and then D is 60 to 69, and an F is 59 and below. So for me, a 1-star was that F period, 2-star was D, 3-star was C, 2-star B, 1-star A. So that's part of why it's so easy for me to get A's and B's. And part of this is also reference to the fact that when I was performing in school, it was not hard for me to get A's. And this isn't trying to boast or anything, but just going through a lot of my schooling, I did not have to try very hard to get A's. And if I got B's, it's because I basically didn't try at all. What I'm saying is, like, 4 and 5 stars are easy for me to give out for books, because that's how I always felt with letter grades, with A's and B's in school, and that's kind of how it fell on that system. Relatively shortly, probably about 6 months, maybe 7 or 8 months, probably around the time that I joined Goodreads, I decided to switch my grading system from being this sort of letter system into just being a star system. I was like, well, if I'm thinking of everything in terms of how these 5 letters in the American school grading system are, why don't I just think of them in stars, and then just make those stars a little bit broader and make them a little bit more fair, instead of, this is pretty good, but not my favorite thing. 4 stars, because that's kind of still how I do it, but it's not quite as simple as it was before. So that's kind of where I changed things as well. And then within the past few months, I would say, I've been considering going to Goodreads and changing some of my scores for books, because I've been wanting to make it so that, like, well, I basically don't rate anything 2 stars, and well, I don't rate anything 1 or 2 stars so far. That's just kind of been the case for me. So I kind of want to use a little bit more of the rating system. Instead of only rating things from 3 to 5 stars, I want to actually use the whole spectrum. So I've been gradually shifting and changing the way that I think about some of these ratings, and therefore adapting some of that in time. But who knows when I'll actually get to Goodread and, re-rate and review all of those books, because that'll be a little bit of an undertaking that I do not have time for at the moment. Question number 9 is, where do you record your ratings of your books? I've mentioned Goodreads a few times up to this point in the video. That is where I do all of my rating of books. I do all of my reviews. I've reviewed dang near everything I've read, and, I basically go in with the mindset of, if I'm reading a book, I'm going to review it on the channel. So that's how things are going on my channel. So I have video reviews of nearly everything I've read over the past year, and actually over the next coming weeks, I'm going to be recording my reviews for basically all of the books that I have read over the past year that I haven't reviewed yet, and getting all of those ready so that they can release, at any point when I need them, or when I have a blank space, I suppose, in the release schedule. But yeah, in terms of the actual ratings, I do all of that on Goodreads, because even in my video reviews, I don't give a rating, I give a recommendation. Although my recommendations are 4 and 5-star books, for me, are books that I'm going to recommend to people, generally speaking, even if there are caveats. And then 1 and 2-star books are going to be books that I don't recommend to people, and there haven't been basically any examples of those, just a few of them that are just like, I don't recommend this book unless you are into this thing or whatever. So like the Bird book, for example, The Obscene Bird of Night by Jose Donoso, that's a book that I don't recommend to people unless you're super into magical realism, because generally speaking, I did not enjoy that book, and that's actually one of the books that when I go back and re-rate stuff, I'm going to take down to a 2 stars when I get to that point. And let's see, what am I thinking now? And yeah, and then 3-star books are just kind of that middle ground of, like, I neither recommend nor don't recommend this, like, make your own decision. So that's what I do, is on Goodreads, I have all the scores, and then in most cases, a sort of like brief review that kind of wraps up like general thoughts in a sort of like spit vomit type of way. Whereas my video reviews are a little bit more of me like talking and discussing through some of those points and being a little bit more broad and discussing a lot more stuff. But sometimes on Goodreads, I do in-depth reviews and actually want to rewrite several reviews so that they are more in-depth because I enjoy doing that and haven't had a, place to really do that on YouTube. So I might go through and do that. Then the question number 10 isn't a question, it is just to tag people. And in terms of tagging people, I don't know who I would tag for any of this stuff. So first off, I'm going to tag Jonathan from Words and Time. I don't know if you do book tag stuff. And if you don't, that's perfectly fine. I'm just going to tag you anyway because I know you're totally okay with me, tagging you and bugging you about stuff. So you're going to be one channel I'll tag whether you want to do this or not. Another channel I guess I'll tag, even though I've no clue if you've actually done this video or not. Madison Goodyear, I'll go ahead and tag her. And I don't know if I have a third channel off the top of my head that I would tag that would even, consider doing something like this. So I guess those are going to be the two people that I tag, and that will be it for me today. Even though I wanted to make this video a little shorter, it's probably still 15 minutes long. I told you, Nicole, I can't be brief. Me and brief just don't go together. So with that being said, thank you guys for watching this little bonus episode that just came out randomly because I got tagged randomly and wasn't in the normal recording schedule. So thank you guys for watching. I'll be back on Tuesday with a normally scheduled book binge episode. I believe it will be of the July reading wrap-up and August TBR, if that's what the calendar is looking like. I don't know off the top of my head, but I'm pretty sure that's what it is. So stick around for that. I'll see you guys in the next video.